because he had completed everything in his life except one thing. When he was a child, he was 8 days old, there was a cholera epidemic in Spain, and he wasn't circumcised till later. And this soul came back in the world to complete the last thing it had to do. Now, I said, I know that story is true. I really don't. I can't promise that story is true. But the idea is definitely true. Once you broaden your perspective and you realize this is not all there is, there's so much more, then God can move what looks like a fragmented piece to good in every way, because this is not all there is. There's a whole other dimension out there. There's a whole afterlife. It changes the whole perspective. Now, I want to claim, here comes the hard part. I want to claim, if you have that idea, and you have it in your head, and you can bring it somehow from your heart to your head, that's an amazing empowerment. Somehow, some way, Judaism tells me that God moves everything to good. He's moving all my realities somehow to good. If you could feel that even a drop, even an iota, you're going to feel you can repent. You're going to feel you can lean, small. With a tremendous sense of empowerment. I want to tell you, my son used to live in Israel. So what happened was that on Friday night, in Israel, everyone lives in apartment buildings, and so we lived in the third floor apartment, and on Friday night, we'd walk up the stairs, and every Friday night, my son played a certain game with me. He played the following game. As they were walking up the stairs, he would all of a sudden lean back and start falling backwards. Ah! Catch me! Funny guy, huh? And I catch him. I say, what are you doing, Gus? What are you doing? How do you know I'm going to catch you? He said, I know you're going to catch me. I know you're going to catch me. He was right. I was going to catch you. But you have to realize something. You know, this is why we have parents. Contrary to popular belief, it's not to give you guilt trips. It's not a... Part of the thing is that when you have a relationship with your parents, that you feel, you know, you're being changed in your diapers, your parents taking care of you completely. Hopefully you've developed a relationship of complete ability to trust. Know everything they're doing for you is for the good. If you have that, you hopefully can transfer that to your relationship to God. If you didn't have that as a child, that's okay. But the concept we talked about today, just like a parent wants them moving towards good, that's God's vision, moving towards good. And that's why, you ever notice we have 10 commandments, right? Right? 10 commandments. We have 5 on this side and 5 on this side, right? So what happens? The 5 on this side are don't kill, don't steal, no adultery, all things between man and his fellow man. And on the other side, first side is things between man and God. I regard, don't have other gods, don't take my name in vain, keep my Shabbos, testimony I created the world, and then what? Honor your parents. How do honor your parents get? That's between man and his fellow man. How did they get on that side? Was there no room? Like they had to try to scribble it there? You know? Oh, we have no room. We got to scribble it. What is that? Why is that the wrong side? And the answer is because it's not the wrong side. It's part of the way you should relate. Hopefully, in relation with parents, you've been able to develop a certain amount of trust and a certain sense that I could lean, I could depend. And God says that if you have that psychological relationship, that emotional relationship, you could transfer that to understand how to relate to Hashem, to God, who lives in us. When you feel that, you really move on. When you feel that, you know what you can say to someone? When the bully says to you, hey, give me your money! You say, my father owns Atlanta. He owns America. He owns the world. That's the feeling. Questions, thoughts? Give out waffle ball if you want still.
Gamzu
Tov. Yeah.
Tova.
Yeah.
How do you explain Masada?
See, I mean, there are tragedies. See, I don't want to. How do you explain Masada? It's a Masada. Masada really is a very, very controversial thing in many areas. There's a discussion amongst the scholars that they should have killed themselves or not, right? Because that was part of the idea. This discussion was the right thing to do because suicide is forbidden in Jewish law. There's a certain allowance when someone fears they're going to be tortured, and that sort of thing. So, but I'll tell you something. I don't want to, in principle, try to explain away anyone's pain. See, because I'm not a prophet. And what happens is that to go and to say why something happened to someone is very, very difficult to any individual, let alone to thousands of people. I could try to do it in my own life for myself. If someone wants to come to me and say, why do you think, Rabbi, I can give you a conjecture and say what it is? I don't know exactly. I know the systems, though, that God moves the world. Sometimes someone dies. For example, there was another example where it says, if you look in the Torah, it lists the generations from Adam to Noah. And it lists there Chanoch. And it says Chanoch died young. He died younger than all his other contemporaries. And the verse says, Chanoch Einenu, he's not there because God took him. That's a very weird verse. He dies younger, he's not there because God took him. What does it mean? So the sages tell us that Chanoch was actually a very righteous person, but he was waving a little bit. And what happened was, God actually ended his life earlier so that he could attain a different experience in the world to come. It's an example of two different dimensions. So here, that case looks very, very bad. The guy died young, younger than he should have. But if he would have stayed alive, it would have been worse for him. He would have actually lived his life maybe improperly and damaged his experience of eternity. So I can't know any individual case unless the rabbis tell us, the Torah tells us, or it says it in our tradition of why this happened. He has to say in the tradition to be a prophet. So I don't know why Masada. I do know that every case of where a person has trouble or difficulty or some issue in some way, in some form, if it's to give them more world to come, if it's to fix up something they did wrong, if it's in order to enable them to teach a lesson to the entire world, which is more merit for them, whatever the different permutations are, it's one of those. And there are many. I'm happy to talk to you after the class. The list, there are numerous, many possibilities of what it could be. Which one we don't know exactly.
Where does prayer come in here?
Oh.
In other words, where does prayer come in? Like,
great question.
If something goes wrong, you say, well, God will tell I don't have to pray that it's going to be fixed. No.
It's a fantastic question. That's right. How do you pray? It's great, right? I want to go pray now. Before I pray, it's like, God, give me this. Wait a minute. No, it's good. I don't need to ask for anything. It's a very good question. The idea of prayer is that God gives you what you need. He gives you what's good. But sometimes He wants you to ask for what you need to build a relationship. It's part of the process. The Talmud says, you know why? It's bizarre. All the Jewish foremothers were barren. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and even Leah. They all couldn't have children. You know why? The Talmud says because God wanted to hear their prayers. When you pray, you don't necessarily always get what you want. What you always get is a relationship with God. So you say, God, I want this. And God might say to you, yes, I'm glad you asked. Now that you asked, you've changed. You're a higher person. I can give it to you. Now that you understand our relationship, you have a relationship with me. And God might say, sometimes I'm not going to get it. It's not good for you. But we, as human beings, are allowed to ask for what we want. Why? Because, first of all, we may change in the process and be able to get it. Like sometimes you have a kid. You ever have a case where you want to give your kid something and you can't because it's not good for them? You punish your child. You send the child to the room. And you want to give them a present. And now you know if you give it to them, it's going to make it be bad for them. You want the kid to change. You can give them what's good. Sometimes God does that also. When our prayer changes us, now we're able to receive these blessings, which would have been bad for us before the prayer. And sometimes He wants us to connect and to get it. But if we ask for it and He says it's not good for you, that's why, again, you shouldn't go and say, oh, He can give it instead, because He's giving you what you need. But you're supposed to try to get what you see fit, and what He gives you is what you need.
In the beginning, you talked about getting there. Obviously, there for me would be different than
it's good,
What
good
is
question.
there?
What is there? What is there? The simple answer, it's not so simple, is that we all want to perfect ourselves, make ourselves